Who would have thought in 2022 we'd be talking about Black Ops 4? It dropped in 2018, and while it's since been retroactively praised as a nice departure from the formula, COD fans did not like it in the moment because of how different the game was. Black Ops 4's multiplayer, it was a huge change of pace thanks to things like specialist equipment, manual healing, armor, 150 health. You guys already know the drill here. It was a decent game on its own accord, but it rubbed a lot of COD players the wrong way, and I get it. Now, in addition to the dramatic changes in multiplayer, Black Ops 4 was the first and so far only mainline Call of Duty game to not have a single-player campaign. Welcome to Video Game Leaks, everybody. Chaos here. Today, we are going to show you what could have been, what once was, what never was, the Black Ops 4 scrapped campaign. That's right. It was there, and it was real. Make sure you drop a like, make sure you're subscribed to the channel, and let's get into this. Now, they wanted to focus on multiplayer and zombies, right? But we've gotten little bits and pieces of what originally was going to be this huge, ambitious campaign that was scrapped during development due to the rough state. Now, the leak stated the multiplayer was originally something even more outlandish, with some playtesters even comparing it to Lawbreakers. Now, I don't have a lot of intel on the multiplayer, but I have a ton of information about the scrap campaign and what exactly you missed out on. Now, our information comes from a Reddit user named PurpleToaster20, awesome name, who has been searching this topic extensively and researching it, and in a thread, they posted everything, over 400 screenshots, receipts, just 100% legit. Not sure why I voice cracked there. So in this video, we're going to go over everything and give you a clear picture of what this game would have been like and if it's something that you guys would have liked to play. So right out of the gate, one thing that I found interesting is the fact that most of these screenshots are from early 2017, but Specialist HQ is present in the build, meaning this weird campaign replacement mode was originally going to be in the game alongside the actual campaign. According to the leaker, the campaign was going to be called Career Mode, and it would actually be a 2v2 setup instead of a normal single-player experience. The mode was in development until early 2018, meaning it was scrapped with less than 10 months left on the clock. Now, one of the big reasons for canceling was the repetitive gameplay loop, which that kind of makes sense due to the 2v2 format. The leaker claims you could play the mode by yourself and have AI fill in the gaps, but the whole point of doing it like this was to create a co-op story mode that tied the Specialist into multiplayer in a more cohesive way. Plus, this would have allowed them to turn the campaign into a live service instead of a standalone, unmonetized experience. So in that regard, I'm kind of glad it was trashed. The COD community would have been furious if the campaign was turned into a live service. Now, interestingly enough, Career Mode would have been branching stories based on which the two teams won the match, which is cool. Winning certain matches would actually change the course of the story and impact what you play next. Now, it's not clear just how dramatic the changes would have been. It's unlikely it would have been as elaborate or detailed as a branching campaign in Black Ops 2 or Cold War, but I think it's a pretty cool idea. So, what would Black Ops 4 have been about? Well, this is where things get weird because the version of Black Ops 4 we got took place before Black Ops 3. But apparently, this wasn't always the case. Originally, BO4 would have taken place after BO3 naturally, and Black Ops 3 takes place in the year 2065, while the version of Black Ops 4 we got took place in the 2040s. However, the scrap campaign took place in the year 2070, which makes it an actual sequel to Black Ops 3's mess of a storyline. The plot would have involved a massive pandemic and a series of climate disasters, sending the world into complete disarray as what is dubbed the Year of Chaos. Yes! The loss of resources means all the weapons were created before the Year of Chaos began, which is why Black Ops 4's weapon selection featured a lot of altered version of BO3 weapons, as there would have been experimental prototypes that never really hit full production before the world collapsed. This is also why in early builds of Black Ops 4, there was tons of Black Ops 3 weapons that mysteriously vanished in the final build before the story changed, or after it did, I'm sorry. This also explains why many of the gun names were obvious references to Black Ops 3 weapons, the Kane-57, the ICR, so on and so forth. Now, there were a few continuity details, like the character Ruin having some new tattoos from Black Ops 3 to 4, and the launch maps were all designed to stick very close to the original story. Two main factions, the Free People's Army, or the FPA, and the World United Nations, or the WUN, the WUN. Now, the WUN served as the main central government of the future world, while the FPA, they are a family of smaller governments who oppose the big one's leadership, and they're willing to fight against their control. The rebels versus the Empire, basically. You would actually get to choose which faction you belong to upon starting the game, which is where the 2v2 structure would come into play. So, you were actually fighting for your faction against real members of the opposing faction. Now, both teams had their own characters and storylines, making the two experiences completely different from one another, on top of the fact that the stories changed as you won or lost certain matches. So what are you thinking so far? Let's talk about the matches. What was the gameplay of the campaign like? Was it just 2v2 multiplayer or something more elaborate? Well, it was a mix of both. Each 2v2 mission was 15 to 20 minutes long, although not all of them were actually timed. Each mission took place in one of 6 locations, which are estimated to be about double the size of Black Ops 3's campaign mission, so they were pretty large levels by COD standards. You and your teammate, you would run around and fight AI enemies like a normal COD campaign, but eventually, you would reach a point in the mission where you would run into the opposing team of 2. Now, if all your health was depleted, you would go into this down but not out state and could be revived, but if you died, you would go back to the last checkpoint. Basically, the goal of each team is to hinder the progress of the other team while completing their own set of objectives along the way. It makes it kind of like this PvPvE situation. Now, there was also a number of abilities assigned to the D-pad, all of which were on a cooldown similar to the Cyber Core from Black Ops 3's campaigns. Then, there was a number of vehicles you could actually pilot, most of which were reused in the Blackout Battle Royale mode. You see how this all connects together? Missions would have had side objectives you could do. You could get extra XP, progress, stuff like that. There was also a companion system that allowed you to call in one of the specialists from multiplayer, and they would actually fight alongside you and make liberal use of their special abilities. You could even use them and give them basic commands by using the D-pad. Now, apparently, as you fought alongside your companion, your relationship with them would evolve and it would develop, making you care more about these characters that you played in multiplayer. I mean, it's crazy. Now, the player character would have been totally customizable, and there's no pre-rendered cutscenes at all in the career mode. You would earn XP by completing missions, and you could use this to unlock more weapons and gear. It's similar to Black Ops 3's campaign. There were also a handful of in-game cinematics, similar to what's in Zombies, but nothing was pre-rendered for the career mode, which that would have been a very interesting change for Call of Duty. What few cutscenes there were, they would serve to further establish the current state of the two factions, and they would play after certain missions as kind of this update on the current state of the world, which is pretty cool. Each mission would end with a newsroom cutscene that kind of wrapped up what just went down. The leaker provided videos and screenshots of 4 career missions, stating they were nearly complete and came from the last build of the game before the mode was scrapped. They believe the footage comes from late 2016 to early 2017, but everything that was unfinished would have been 100% completed by the time career mode was scrapped. So that means someone somewhere actually has this final playable version of these missions, which to me is wild. The 4 missions the leaker showed were called Air Assault Convoy, Data Control, Data Escape, and Snatch and Grab. Like I said before, the 2v2 format of the campaign meant you were likely going to be playing these missions multiple times over, but with slight changes and variations depending on the state of the story, which explains why it was scrapped, I guess, being too repetitive. The leaker also described what were called handlers. So I'll sum that up, but I'll try to sum it up. Basically, they were a main figure of your faction, and they also served as your announcer, voice in your ear during the gameplay. The handler of the Free People's Army was Sawyer, while the handler of the Wound was someone called McQueen. Both characters had extensive backstories you would learn as you played the career mode, but there was a third major character known as the Journalist, who was the focus of several missions, and his allegiances were unclear. Now, in addition to the campaign, there was a number of scrap game modes, such as Return of Nightmares from BO3, and a new mode called Skirmish, which was basically the same as arcade mode from classic COD campaigns, where you could actually go play certain missions over and over again with a buddy, go for XP, go for high scores, without affecting the story or your faction. Now, Skirmish mode, it would also feature traditional matchmaking. You could play with random people from either faction, and there were a handful of gameplay modifiers and lists. For example, there was a playlist called War Zones that would have you just playing the more action-packed missions, while the Wet Work playlist focused more on stealthy missions. So there you go. There's a lot more information, but I'll let you guys unpack it. We'll put a link in the description. This is absolutely insane. It's insane to see what they were working on that never actually came to fruition. It's like that with all games. There's stuff we'll never actually know about, but this was Black Ops 4 campaign. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you soon.